Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to talk about the amendment that I've actually presented and signed by the colleagues, which is actually designed to actually try to bring us within the rubric of the law to some extent. And a lot of the things we're talking about, we talked about the fact that safety is not an issue, but it's a competition issue. And this particular amendment addresses that, the way the law addresses that, and it becomes important if we don't want to just automatically know that this bill is going to be overturned by the court. One of the speakers had actually said that let's forget about trans, take that away. Don't put trans in front of them. But the problem with that is the courts, we are lawmakers, so we're supposed to actually do law, right? The courts everywhere, they say no. When you put trans in, that is a medical and actually legal terminology that matters. And what they look at is that actually has significant meaning. So first the question is it discrimination if you discriminate against a trans person? So let's kind of answer that first because that becomes important. A bill that discriminates against transgender is a bill that discriminates on the basis of sex. That's not me saying that. That's the Supreme Court of the United States saying that in Bostwick versus Clayton County, Georgia case, just not too long ago. Discrimination based on transgender status is discrimination based on sex. That's not me saying that. That is Lane versus Houston County, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals. So you have discrimination based on sex when you have transgender, because transgender is actually recognized as an actual term of art that matters. So you can't just take out trans. And that's what this particular amendment tries to address. Then the question becomes, if it is discrimination, when can the state actually discriminate? And the courts say when they can discriminate is when it serves an important government interest. And the courts have held that fairness in competition and protecting women's sports and safety is an important interest to be protected. So there's agreement there. But it's still subject to Title IX and 14th Amendment scrutiny. And how have the court started ruling on that? The 11th Circuit has not directly addressed this issue yet, but it is interesting to note that federal courts throughout this country have stated that where you have a trans girl who is actually transitioned, it is discrimination because, to bar them from playing sports, because on a girl's team, because the level of competition, the issue of competition no longer exists. That is in a Fourth Circuit case and also a case out of Arizona, all federal court cases, all citing federal law. That's the law of the land. The law as it exists right now is that transgender is an actual legal term. You just can't remove that. That is not coming from understand, when I say that you can't just remove that, that's not coming from some wild court in California, that's Supreme Court. When we start talking about that transgender youth, transgender girls who have actually now transitioned from a medical standpoint and a social standpoint, and that is important, and that's what this amendment addresses, they do not pose a greater competition threat. That's not me saying that. That's the Fourth Circuit saying that. And even if you look at where the 11th Circuit is heading, they're going to follow the same role. So these are not some crazy liberal judges in California. This is a circuit out of Arizona that said this. A circuit in the Fourth Circuit, which encompasses West Virginia, said this. These are conservative judges, all following what was given them the roadmap by the United States Supreme Court. So what this does, it says, when a trans girl has actually transitioned, you can't just remove the terminology. When that has happened, what the courts have said is the idea of a competitive advantage is no longer there. And so if this bill is truly about trying to actually deal with this issue in a real way and not about hate, then this amendment will be approved, because this actually serves the purpose. And it might actually show you or allow you to actually pass some type of muster, constitutional challenge, and Title IX challenge. Normally, I would have a position of, let's not try to improve a bad bill. And I think this does that. But in this situation, we're talking about children. So we want to try to make sure that we try to improve it as much as we can, because we are talking about children in the final analysis. So if this will allow some children to be able to play, then we want to pass this amendment. Because at the end of the day, that's exactly what we're doing here. we're using children as political foils. And we're making these transgender girls into some kind of superheroes or maybe supervillains that are just going to go out and dominate sports. And based on what? Instead of assuming transgender girls will win everything and want to just participate to win all the trophies, did it ever occur to you that maybe they just want to participate because they like to play? Why did we make these transgender girls, these super girls, that are just going to dominate everything? Why might not they just be the old Lord kid? What's the old Lord kid? The old Lord kid is where when you were growing up and you were playing sports and somebody would put somebody into the game and the parents would be like, oh Lord, why you do that? And it happens on pro sports, it happens on college sports, it happens in youth sports. Oh Lord, why they put that kid? Oh my God, we about to lose now. Maybe instead of just making them into these super villains, maybe they're just the old Lord kids. That they just want to play. They just want to participate. Have you ever thought about that? That their parents just want to go to the game and root them on, even if they're the old Lord kid? They ever thought about it from that standpoint? And the fact of the matter is that this idea that these girls are automatically, or boys are automatically these superior to girls, is really very dangerous talk, quite frankly. And so now I also want to conclude on two thoughts. And this is more so some of the people who maybe are on the fence about the issue globally, especially with this kind of amendment. This paternalistic talk that boys are just naturally better than girls isn't right. Not from a moral level, it's just wrong. The fact of the matter is, if Amanda Nunes, who's an MMA fighter, or Clarissa Shields, who's a boxer, came in here, they'd wipe the floor with every man in here and still have time to go eat lunch. The fact of the matter is, we're going to have a goddamn girls flag football team come in here, and they could take all of the men in here and put them out on that field, and all y'all would quit after the first quarter. So this idea becomes very dangerous, that it's just natural that boys are just better than girls. On some levels, it may be correct, but it's individual basis on many levels. But it's dangerous talk. And people shouldn't be buying into that as some kind of shield to actually persecute these children. And then secondly, I'll say this. Anybody who thinks they're buying time because of this hate-filled bus that's now driving because you're going to throw trans girls onto that bus, that you're buying time, that bus ain't going to come get you, I got another thing to tell you. When something's based on hate, no one's safe. With that, I yield the well.